I'm here today to talk about Parkinson's disease and to help you with it. I can help in ways that your neurologist may not be able to because neurologists are excellent at prescribing medication that can control the symptoms of tremors and stiffness and other problems that you may have. But I'm going to talk about some things you can do to help slow progression, maybe get a better handle on what is going on and how to protect your brain from any further problems. Now, number one is certain foods harbor environmental neurotoxins. They damage and kill the very cells that produce the dopamine. Now, Parkinson's disease is when dopamine is low in the body, and that makes it difficult to control tremors and can make movement stiff and slow. And there's other problems like facial masking and quite a few problems. But tremors are usually one of the most annoying because it's hard to drink things. So we want to look first, I'll tell you about what foods harbor these environmental neurotoxins, and food is the principal way that they are introduced into the body. Other foods can protect your brain cells. They can protect the cells that make dopamine, and I'll be telling you about those foods that are beneficial that you can include more of in your diet. So you have the power to control your diet, and you have the choice. And my role is as educator to help you make a good choice that'll be good. And also, I want to let you know that everyone says, well, we need more protein. But I analyze diets with my own dietary analysis software, the Diet Doctor. And I've been doing this for many decades. And when I analyze diets of people on various types of diets, from raw vegan to the pure carnivore diet, what I notice is that no one is really low on protein. Actually, 3 people over the decades, but it's very, very rare. But too much protein can be a problem for Parkinson's disease because when you have too much protein, it can interfere both with the drugs and also with your own production of dopamine. I want to tell you more about that. The dopamine is mostly made in this orange section of the picture here at the bottom of the brain. The dopamine then goes on to the striatum and initiates movement. This is called the substantia nigra, and the part that makes dopamine is the pars compacta. They have these big Latin names for that. Protecting these cells that make dopamine from death is our goal. If you have fewer cells, then Parkinson's disease tends to get worse. And if you keep losing dopamine producing cells, then the drugs don't work as well and the disease progresses. If you can hang on to those cells, keep them alive, keep them there, making dopamine, then it's possible to slow progression. The drugs for Parkinson's disease, principally the first line of defense is levodopa, usually with carbidopa. The levodopa can help with tremors. It certainly does. If you have Parkinson's disease, that's one of the ways that neurologists diagnose it is if the levodopa is helping, then it's Parkinson's disease. If it's not helping, then it may be some other type of Parkinsonism and other things may be needed. But the drugs don't slow progression of the disease. They hide the symptoms. That's different. I'm here today to help you to understand how to slow the progression. Now, dietary antioxidants, vitamin C, vitamin E, carotenoids, the colorful pigments in fruit, certain minerals like selenium and zinc, manganese, and copper, and polyphenols do slow the death of dopamine-producing cells. So you can do both. You can, take the drugs and also slow the death of the cells that are making the dopamine. How did anyone ever get Parkinson's disease? Did you ever wonder? By the time it's diagnosed, perhaps 50% of your dopamine producing cells have already died off. How did they die off? And what's going to kill the rest of your dopamine producing cells? For those of us who don't have Parkinson's disease, how can we avoid it? By avoiding these environmental contaminants. So I'm going to let you know which foods contain the contaminants that can kill off the dopamine producing cells and slow down that. one study, and you'll see that I have studies at the bottom of most of my screens. This one's from the Annals of Neurology. 110 people were looked at in this population-based study, and they found that the intake of animal fats was strongly related to Parkinson's disease risk. The odds ratio is 5.3, 500% increase in Parkinson's disease and those who ate more animal fat. So perhaps you might consider eating less animal fat or even no animal fat, because animal fats store the pesticides and other organic persistent pollutants that are all over the environment, from the North Pole to the South Pole. I mean, it's fascinating that these are so widespread that even organic meat has similar amounts of these persistent fat-loving chemicals that kill off dopamine-producing cells as the conventionally produced meat. Oh, the book on the screen is a Parkinson's disease cookbook, and that's my wife's cookbook that is available either in paper form or on our website as an ebook for under $10, just to get the information out there. They looked at postmortem studies on Parkinson's disease brains, and they found higher levels of the various organochlorine pesticides. These organochlorine pesticides, in my opinion, should never have been used because they persist almost forever in the environment. Dieldrin is one of them, heptachlor, lindane, there's so many of them, and they all persist. All of these organochlorine pesticides concentrate in fatty tissue. They're lipophilic, fat-loving, both in food animals and in human brains. So there's a small amount in the grass or the grain that the animal is eating. And the animal bioaccumulates this into itself, and then there's more there, maybe 100 times more, maybe even 1,000 times more in the fat of the animal than was in the food that it's eating. Then humans eat the animals, and we bioaccumulate. If we eat those animals, and the animal fat especially, we bioaccumulate, and the fattiest part of our bodies is our brain, and we accumulate those there, and they kill off the cells that make dopamine. So one possible way to go would be to avoid animal fat. Here they looked at lindane in dairy products and eggs. The control graph, as you see, on the left is kind of low. The Alzheimer's graph is not much higher than the control graph, but the Parkinson's patients had much higher lindane. That is a potential cause of Parkinson's disease, and it's been looked at as a contributor. In this study, in the Archives of Neurology, the organochlorine lindane raised the odds of getting Parkinson's disease 4.39 times over normal risk. Potential dietary sources of lindane are milk, eggs, and cheese. There are other pesticides that are concentrated in beef, pork, chicken, turkey, and fish. So animal fat is a problem there. You notice the studies come up with slightly different numbers, one a little over 5 times, one a little under 5 times. But the point of these is to show that there's a much higher risk with more animal fat. Here I am showing you on this screen on the left, my Parkinson's disease book is Dietary Regulation of Dopamine. I can't tell you everything during this talk today. I'll do my best, but if you have further questions, this book is available on my website, shown here, drsteveblake.com, for under $10. My goal is not to make a lot of money. It's to get the information you need. And the book is heavily footnoted. So if you're interested in something I've said in the book, you can go right to that reference and read the original study, which I recommend. Always check. Those who consume 3 servings of dairy products compared with 1 serving of dairy products per day had an 80% increased risk of Parkinson's disease. Now, I would have liked to see this study with people who consume 3 servings of dairy products compared with no servings of dairy products, but that's harder to find in an American population. 4 cups of milk daily was found to triple the risk of Parkinson's disease. There are, however, many other milks out there that aren't made with dairy. There's soy milk and rice milk and almond milk and all kinds of delicious creamy milks that you can try instead of dairy milk. And the advantage is because they're plants, they don't bioaccumulate these pesticides from the environment. Another study on milk fat, it increases inflammation. One of the ways that dairy products can cause faster Parkinson's disease progression is because dairy products reduce uric acid levels in the bloodstream. Now, we think of uric acid as having something to do with gout and not as a good thing usually. But amazingly enough, uric acid is an antioxidant that is very common in the human body. And when it's reduced, greatly reduced by dairy products like milk, then we have more oxidation. And oxidation is the principal method that these dopamine producing cells in our brain are killed off. And of course, dairy products are contaminated with neurotoxic pesticides. Now, this study was very interesting. A 2020 study in the Journal of Movement Disorders. For every 1 ounce slice of cheese consumed, Parkinson's disease risk increased by 36 to 48%. Now, I translated that for you into a 12-inch pizza with 6 slices. 200 to 300% increased risk of Parkinson's disease with these dairy products. There are alternative cheeses on the market, or as my wife points out, you can always use hummus or a nut butter or something besides cheese that's even healthier than an alternative cheese to take the place in a sandwich or a salad or whatever you're making. Dairy products in this study in neurology increase the risk of Parkinson's disease 2.3 times. The neurotoxic contaminants are one of the main reasons. There are other reasons too. Polychlorinated biphenyls, they've been linked to higher PD risk. And those are called PCBs, and they're very common cause of both cancer and also Parkinson's disease. In yellow at the bottom of the screen, I've highlighted that you could avoid dairy products to slow the progression of Parkinson's disease. It's easier now than it ever has been, and you might want to consider that. People with the lowest dairy product consumption were 60% less likely to get Parkinson's disease in this very large study. And of course, these studies are tricky because the lowest consumption of dairy products might mean 2 or 3 times a day. So really, it would be better if these studies could compare to no dairy product consumption. But as I mentioned, that's kind of hard to do. But this study looked at, in the journal Oxidative Medicine and Cellular Longevity, looked at the reasons why, the mechanisms of actions. One is excess protein, and I'll be talking about that coming up. 2 is dieldrin, lindane, and the other neurotoxic pesticides and leftover environmental contaminants. The lower uric acid I mentioned, and endotoxins. When milk is raw, it grows bacteria. And so they sterilize the milk and kill the bacteria so no one gets sick. However, the killed off bacteria, the shells of these gram-negative bacteria still exist. And I've done some studies into that and published quite a few studies on lipopolysaccharides, also known as endotoxins. These are the leftover shells of those bacteria that are killed off. They trigger our immune system, and they cause a great deal of inflammation in the brain, resulting in oxidation and brain cell death. Not, of course, only in the Parkinson's areas that make dopamine, but in the thinking areas that help us with memory and our ability to think clearly. Those are some of the main concerns with milk and cheese and other dairy products. Here are a couple of bar graphs. With the white bar, if the study, in each of the little lines to the right of the right bar on both of these, if they're to the right of the bar, they mean increased risk of Parkinson's disease. If they're to the left of the bar, they mean reduced risk. But there are no studies showing reduced risk of milk and cheese. But there are every study done